Okay, I'm going to talk to the wide. I go to the wide. Do you want to say your action?
Action.
Cool, thank you. Good morning and welcome back to another podcast. Today we are in a studio and we are here with Antonio from Streamlab. So I've worked with him a few times before with live stream content. We'll get to what he does now. But I know him, I've done a few jobs with him. We've come a few years together working in things. And this is his studio where we're doing his podcast in. So let's get straight into it. Give me a brief history about yourself. Where are you from? Where were you born, basically? Where did you grow up? What did you study? What did you do to get to where you are today?
First of all, thank you for having me on your channel. It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, like you said, we've worked together for many years. As a team, you've been my camera ops, and you got involved with us right from the beginning when we started live streaming, so to speak. Still a bit of information about myself. Cape Town boy, I've lived here most of my life. I started Streamlab in 2018. Prior to that, I worked for ad agencies and digital agencies. My job title was creative technologist, so I work in like systems architecture, social media integration, building things like mobile apps, e-commerce sites, websites, anything digital related. It's a space that I've worked in since about 2007, and yeah, I've worked for many ad and digital agencies. I was kind of like the go-to guy for a lot of companies when they want to build something that's very specific, and very, very kind of niched. And then, working for all these agencies, I always came to realize the one thing that everyone always talks about is content is king. So in 2015, I bought my first Canon. I think it was a ER 650D. And then you kind of fall down that whole rabbit hole of buying cameras and understanding lenses and lighting and sound and all that. And the thing with that was I didn't really know where I wanted to go with that. I was very fascinated by the technology and you fall down the whole YouTube rabbit hole of learning this and learning that and doing online classes and doing all these things. But I had no idea what I really wanted to do with it. And then in 2017, 2018, we started seeing this French production company in France called Circle that started live streaming these festivals. And that was it. Like, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do. So yeah, fast forward 6-7 years, and Streamlab is where it is today because of the music industry. We started for the first 2 years live streaming festivals, and then 2 years later, COVID happened, and live stream just became this massive thing. And it's been a hell of a ride. I won't lie. Like we've done a lot of things, but I know that's another answer to one of your questions. So let's
yeah. So this follows into the next question: is explain to me what Streamlabs is and what you do exactly.
Okay, I had a feeling this was going to happen. My little kitty's going to jump into shot, but anyway, there he is. So Streamlab is really a video production company that is focused purely on live stream content. So as you get your videographers and your cinematographers and your photographers and all that, we produce video content that works purely in a live space. So, there's a lot of facets to that. Multiple camera angles, understanding internet, understanding social platforms, and how live stream works on all these platforms. So yeah, that's really our answer to your question. Live stream, that's us.
You specialize in live streaming?
Correct, yeah. I mean, occasionally there's pre-recorded work that we do, but it's something that we really try to steer away from.
Cool. So we met in 2017, I think.
I think it was 17, yeah.
When you did the festivals and things.
Yeah.
So explain to me what you did at festivals. It's related to what we're talking about now, basically.
Correct.
And also get into what was your first festival, maybe. What was the first event you did or first festival you did via live streaming?
Yeah.
And just explain to me how you did the festivals roughly.
Okay. So yeah, as you know, 2017 was our first music festival. I think it was Eden. No, it wasn't Eden Experience. It was Spilt Milk. So our first stream was for a musician called Carl Watson. He had an album launch, and we did a 3-camera stream on that, and we had operators and sliders and everything, and it came out really good. And then within a couple of days, one of the promoters saw the stream and they reached out to us and they were like, listen, we've got this music festival that's on. It's going to be taking place in this giant inflatable dome, which is like 50 meters by 40 meters. And we've got these crazy techno DJs come flying in from all over the world. So we were like I wanted to do this. My partner at the time, he was like, we're not really geared for it. There's a lot of tech that comes into it that we would need and so on and so on. But I was like, nah, we're doing it. Like, there's one way to learn, and that's just throw yourself in the deep end, which we totally did. Back then we didn't have all the equipment that we have today. We didn't have video transmission systems. We didn't have gimbals. We didn't have jibs. All these things that are in our industry standard, so to speak. But yeah, so that was our first festival. Things that you have to overcome in music festivals. One is internet is the biggest issue because you're putting 6,000 people in the same space.
All phones in their pockets.
Exactly. So, to run something like normal 4G internet is almost impossible. Video transmission is another problem. So we run the majority of SDI cables across everywhere. But the thing is, you've got people all over the place. People tripping over cables being pulled out of cameras. And the minute you lose a cable, you lose a camera. You lose multiple camera angles. So there's that. Sound, DJs, musicians, they like to ride their levels. That's something that I've literally wanted to throw something at DJs for because they get so excited and I understand it. Like I was a DJ many years ago myself, so I get the excitement levels. Other obstacles when it comes to music and festival live streams, fellow photographers and content creators. Like anyone with a GoPro and a little camera and like a little handheld rig with like a little shotgun mic, like everyone wants to get backstage. And the problem is that, as you know, it's like a lot of which you experience yourself. Yeah. Guys get in the way, they don't understand, like, oh, these are broadcast cables, these are audio cables. You can't just go walking over things. You can't, when you've got cameras positioned left, right, and center, you can't just go step in a shot. When you've got a DJ playing and you've got a camera placed over his head, overlooking the entire arena, and then this guy comes and he puts his little spotlight camera and his little GoPro literally onto the back of a DJ's head. I'm like, somebody please throw something at him. But yes, I understand. So you have to exercise levels of patience there. I think that's something that you have to just like be able to take a little bit of a chill pull and just take a deep breath and understand that everyone's just trying to do their own part here.
That's the difference where live versus content creation comes into. We were live, like I said, I worked with you a lot. So then I would have the camera on my shoulders and you'd have the cable attached in your camera running down my back across the floor, across the stage, where we actually clipped our cables onto our belts because people kept walking over the cable. It hooks and then the chance of it ripping off your shoulder is high. So we rather had it pull our hips than rip it off our shoulders. And then it's live, so you can't just change angles quickly or get someone to move out your way because we had earpieces in. So then you tell us, okay, we're live now. Now we're standing there, the camera is live. Then suddenly you said you have an influencer or content creator step in front of you to get the shot. But little do they know is we live. We can't just cut our shots instantly. Well, you can, but you know what I'm saying. You can't. It's live. It's completely different than content creation. And people don't understand that.
Do you remember what an obstacle things like comms was at music festivals? So it's like, I think the first couple of festivals we did, we didn't really even have comms. Like normal radios at music festivals do not work.
There's too much interference.
There's too much interference.
It's too loud.
Yeah, it's just like you've got like 20,000 watts of the most insane sound rigs imaginable. And then you've got headsets with microphones and you've got your camera operators right in front of these towers of speakers. So it's like, it doesn't matter how much noise cancellation you've got or noise cancellating mics, or even if I'm sending commands through and I'm backstage in what you think would be a very well insulated space for sound, everything just loops back in. So that was a huge thing for us too in terms of how to overcome something like that, because to run a multi-camera live stream from a festival where your operators have no idea what's going on in terms of if their shot is live or if the next guy's on standby. So it's like, I would always say to you guys, like, and you kind of picked this up very quickly too, it's like slow camera angle, slow movement, because sometimes I might say you're live, but you can't hear me, and I can kind of start to preempt when you're going to tilt off and move on to something else. Then I can quickly cut to something else in real time.
Yeah, so let's talk about that as well. Is you basically, I don't know the right term, the producer of this live stream.
Yeah.
So you sitting backstage behind your desk, behind your computers, which is over there behind us now.
Yeah.
Hitting the buttons, changing, adding your lower thirds, adding your graphics and stuff. So I'm just the camera operator holding it.
Yeah.
You basically the director. I think that's the right term.
Correct, yeah.
You sitting there directing us and then also trying to figure out, okay, cut to this shot looks nice, or the artist is going to drop the bass now, cut to that shot of the wide, people jumping, cut to the crowd.
Yeah.
So you basically sitting there looking when the best shot is and also trying to preempt what us as cameramen are doing to, are we going to lose the shot now or whatever the case is.
And also trying to preempt what the crowd's going to do, right? Because I mean, like, you've got 6,000 people, a lot of them are on a whole nother level, very special. So you kind of have to be very careful with that. And the just before I answer your question, the one thing that amazed me about this was when we started doing this, a lot of promoters would say, they find it kind of invasive. They would come in there with these cameras and people wouldn't be happy with that. Yet when we started doing that, it was completely the opposite thing. Like, girls love performing in front of the camera, as you know. So that was quite an eye-opener for us. Sorry, your question was related to
I just basically explained that you're directing. So you're sitting there, you're operating this whole system, and then you have to preempt.
Yes. Okay, so let me give it to you in a nutshell. I've got 3, 4, sometimes 5 cameras. We've got 4 cameras on the ground. We may have another camera up in the sky with a drone. And what happens is all these feeds coming to my video mixer, into my desk. I can kind of see what's coming in from all 4 sides. I will then cut through each 4 of those, right? From there onwards, whatever I'm cutting through goes to the broadcast side. So then I would have an HDMI or an SDI cable going into a capture card, which then goes into the laptop. Now with the laptop would then be running like a broadcast software of some sort, which could be OBS or vMix. So you've got this clean video feed that I've cut through, and then on top of that, think of it as like Photoshop, but like an additional layer. I can either add like a lower third title or a logo or the name of the artist, or if we're doing like very corporate based streams, sometimes we'll have like a 5-minute countdown clock. So we'll start with the clock, then we'll cut to a live clean shot, then we'll cut to the artist performing, then his name would appear, and that all happens within the broadcast software. So from there onwards, there you're sending your stream to whatever platform it is that you require. I mean, in a nutshell, this is pretty much television, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. Yeah. It's full broadcast. The only difference is you're sending it to a social media platform or an online platform versus a television station or a satellite feed or whatever the case is. But they're pretty much exactly the same thing. We actually did a stream in December for the Daily Maverick, and we had like ambassadors there and ministers of this, and it was like a huge government affair. And I remember I had this lady that was coordinating the entire event, and she said to me, she's like, okay, so you're directing, you're cutting between camera angles, and you've got a computer on your side where you've got a stream technician, but today you're doing that too, where you're running graphics and titles, and then you're also hitting the send stream button to a broadcast. So in actual fact, what used to be an entire OB van, a production van, 5 years ago, and still is many times today, is now one person. Cutting between video angles, adding another graphic layer, overlay, and then sending a broadcast through to a specific source. I mean, today that's all completely possible through the technology that exists.
I just want to add that a lot of people will be like, oh, why didn't you? Because everything is cabled. All the cameras are cabled via actual physical cables.
Yeah.
all the computer equipment, everything's cables. People might ask, why not go remote?
Yeah.
It's possible, but like you said, at festivals, the frequencies you have there, there's always interference. I know the one festival we were at was in the container yard.
Yeah.
So you had this, I think it was 3, 4, 5 high, tall containers stacked on one another.
Yeah.
It made a cool festival experience, but I know you were struggling with internet there because the metal containers just blocked all the
signals all over the place.
So you had to like get a antenna right at the top to actually get signal to send this thing out.
Exactly. So look, cable is always going to be your number one option, right? So with cameras, you've got 2 cable options. One is, you've got 3 actually. You've got HDMI, which is what everyone knows. But HDMI is limited to 20 meters, and it becomes very risky. Like, HDMI cables don't last that long, and we generally find that with HDMI, remember your camera's got an HDMI that comes out of it. You then plug it into a cable, which is then going into another source, and then that's receiving that HDMI signal. We find that with HDMI, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a delay that takes place because it's compression and then decompression again. With SDI, which is pretty much broadcast quality, so you get different kinds of SDI cable too. You get normal SDI cable, which looks like the antenna cable going to your roof. And then you get digital SDI, which is either 3G, 6G, or 12G. Now that's all dependent on what resolutions and frame rates and how big data files you want to send across SDI. Now SDI is by far the best source from my perspective because you can run long 120 meter strands. I think you can even run longer than that. But the thing is with SDI, there's like no latency at all. It's just instant. It's the preferred choice for broadcast today. And then your third choice is Ethernet. So your Cat6, Cat7 cables. That's not something that we really play with, and I'll tell you why. Because, again, you've got HDMI, right? HDMI to Cat6 or Ethernet adapter. Send it down. You can run 200-300 meters, whatever the case is. And then you've got another adapter back into from Cat6 back into HDMI. So what happens is now you're running all these converters from one side to the next, and you develop such levels of latency. So when you're dealing with multiple cameras, multiple audio sources, what happens is you end up with this unsynced problem of biblical proportions based on length of cables, where you think you tested on this camera and now you've added a little bit of delay in audio from the mic systems, and that was fine, but now you've got another cable that's even longer and now the delay is even worse on that. So we tend to stick with SDI. It just works. And then on the odd occasion where we need a roaming camera where people are going to be walking through the crowd, then we would go with something like a video transmission, and like high-end transmission whereby your delays are either 0.01 or 0.04 of a second. So it's minimal, you know?
So let's finish up the festival side of your business by this next question is, explain to me, or what's the craziest work-related experience you've had at a festival, the craziest moment you've had at a festival, stream-related?
I think Eden Experience was one of the crazy ones for us. We had a lot of problems at that event. I think the event lost power something like 6 or 7 times. Yeah. Generators were overloaded. We fried SSD drives, we fried recordings. So what you need to understand about live streams is that these streams need to be scheduled ahead of time. So when you lose power, everything goes off. You lose that scheduled stream. You've got an audience of 5, 6, 3,500 people watching at some point in time, and all of a sudden that stream just goes dead, and then you have to start again, and people don't have a clue on the other side of what's going on. So I would say power was a problem. Internet has always been the biggest problem, and that was something that we overcame quite early on already. I would say I'm answering your question correctly, right? In terms of problems. Yeah. So internet was a big problem for us. You put 6,000 people in the same space. Cell towers in those areas become unusable. I mean, you go to a music festival, you've got got great internet signal, but you can't make a phone call, you can't send a WhatsApp message. So we realized that, finding a tower that is out of reach of a normal cell phone, taking a booster dish and pointing your dish at that tower that might be like 10 k's away, which a cell phone can't connect to, and bam, you've got internet again. Being able to bond internet connections together is also quite a high requirement, because sometimes what happens, especially with load shedding, the minute we go through load shedding, a cell tower might drop to a quarter of its capacity, or people in that area, their house power goes down. So everyone's phone jumps from the Wi-Fi to the cell tower. So again, being able to jump across multiple networks or having multiple networks ready so that should Vodacom go down, you've got MTN as redundancy and so on and so on. So figuring that out. The film industry, during COVID, when COVID kicked off, the film industry were like, calling me the whole time. They're going, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And how are you bonding your internet connections? And, a company like Teradek, they've got a platform that does this already called Teradek Bond, which costs I think 220 grand. Yep. So I just took a little Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Pi 4, and had a whole bunch of 4G routers, and you get some software and you bond everything within the Raspberry. And it was cost me 6, 7, 8 grand to build. And I've got a multi internet connection bonding service that fits in a little box, that could go into a little briefcase or a little backpack, and you can pull connections from everywhere. I think one of the other trickiest things was with us doing that stream from Robben Island, it was a lot of people had objections with regards to if it would be possible to stream from Robben Island. So I did countless site visits there for that job.
But that was with the choir?
Yeah, Novo Youth Choir and
yes.
Master KG. So they were the biggest two music artist groups in South Africa over 2020, 2021.
Yeah, and then we shot a live of them two together performing on
Correct.
Robben Island.
Yeah.
With supposedly Table Mountain in the background.
Yeah.
But then
Mother Nature, right?
The morning of the festival, broadcast, the mist pulled in, and then all we could see was mist.
Honestly, hey, it's I remember the day before we did all those test shots, we had everything set up, and it was beautiful. It looked absolutely stunning. We had those gerb shots. We were on the southernmost point of Robben Island. We were at something that was called Ep.4. We had this incredible backdrop of Table Mountain with this blue ocean in front of you. We were going to get two of the biggest music artists in South Africa at that time to perform live together, which had never been done before. And all we needed was just for Mother Nature to just play with us for an hour and a half. We had some of the best drone pilots in South Africa coming in for that. And it had the perfect combination of everything that could just go right. And unfortunately, I remember we sat there for hours waiting for this light fog just to clear. And the minute we got that little bit of that glimmer of sunlight coming through, we're like, okay, let's go live, let's do this. And literally 15 minutes into the performance, this dark fog just comes in. And lenses are steaming up, and I'm going, pull your endies off, pull your endies off. It was a little bit of a disaster, but that's the nature of the game. There's no second takes with live. It's now and it's happening, and that's the thing that I really love about it. The energy behind a live stream is very different to anything pre-recorded. It's you can't get it wrong, and you do get it wrong. There are imperfections. If you look all over the place, there are literally these little imperfections everywhere. But I think that's what also makes it really special. It's it has this zero bullshit element to it. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to it.
This leads to my next question.
Yeah.
How would you describe, is live different to pre-recorded? I know for a starter it is live. It's not, like you said now, it has imperfections in it and things like that.
Yeah.
So what is the difference, and what aspects would you use live over pre-recorded?
Okay, so again, the beauty of live is the fact that you have the ability now to broadcast something in real time. The other beauty of this is that you have the ability to engage with your audience in real time. So let's say, for example, you've got 1,000 people watching your broadcast. You have the ability to take questions from them in real time. Now, television can do that, But they do that through where people call in, or they might run like a Twitter feed or something like that, where people can hashtag or respond via certain things. If you're streaming to YouTube today, people can drop questions in the comment section. People can also respond on Facebook via the comment section. If you want people to call in, that can happen via a Zoom call, or you could use a third-party stream service whereby you're streaming from a studio like this, but you've got another person that calls in, and then that whole stream is managed via a switcher level like we've got over here, but also via a cloud-based service whereby this 3-camera setup is being sent to one online source, and then the second party calling in from somewhere is also, you're able to cut between that angle at some point, or do like a picture-in-picture. So I guess to answer your question is, live stream is really built around a performance or a broadcast of some sort, with an engagement level from an audience, and that's where this thing really shines. Yeah.
And then on that, you can save a live broadcast for afterwards use.
Yeah.
So you can record the live broadcast and then post it on as a separate video later. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times what we'll do is we might stream to one platform, but then we will also do a full recording of everything. So you get a clean recording as well as your final production recording, which has got all your graphics and titles and your countdown clocks and your holding frames, etc., etc. And you can post that anywhere. You can cut that up. You can cut it up into little side edits or shorts or whatever the case, and further distribute it from there. Yeah.
So on to the next thing is, people might be wondering why my podcast now looks different. And this is because we are in your studio.
Yeah.
This is the studio you've built. We've got your 3 live stream cameras on here. This isn't live, but it's using the exact same setup, and it's going to be saved and then uploaded.
Yeah.
And explain to us, sorry, that's why it looks different, because we are actually here, we're using his 3 cameras, and then you can cut through, we've got the director over there, you can cut through all the different camera angles to pick the ones we're talking now.
Yeah.
So explain to me this little studio setup you have, how it works, and just how you made it happen.
So in short, we're currently in my lounge right now. As you can see, we're looking at the wide shot, right? So what I've done is, I've taken these little artificial walls. I've created these artificial walls with these foam bricky backgrounds. Put some plastic plants in the backdrop, in the background. Put some Parcan lights that I can set that are completely RGB. And I created this little cozy, little nesty little environment whereby 2 people can sit down and chat. On top of that, we've got the 3 camera angles. We've got the wide, we've got the tight on me, and then we've got the tight on you. Thank you. Back to the wide. So we've got all of that. And then, of course, we're pulling audio in from our lavalier mics. I've got some remote control lighting upstairs here that's shining down on us, as well as the backdrop light. All of these feeds come into my desk, which I think we'll do a cutaway shot of that, so you can see how your audience can see how that looks.
Okay, and explain to me what we are doing behind the scenes. This is behind where the director is sitting.
Yeah.
And this is your operating system.
Okay, so as you can see here, we've got a 4-channel SDI, what we refer to as a switcher. A switcher is what we call a video mixer. So we've got 4 inputs. We've got your 2 tights, a wide, and then a 4th that we can use for that, right? Sometimes we'll have a 4th camera, sometimes we'll have a drone, sometimes we will have a PowerPoint presentation, and then what would happen is we could have the PowerPoint presentation with a picture-in-picture, so you can see the person speak while he's presenting something. All right, so I cut between all 4 inputs like this, right? From there, I'm splitting the signal out 2 ways. One to my recorder, which is over here. So this recorder pretty much gives me a clean recording of what we've just done. And then from there, I'm sending a clean output to my broadcasting software. So this broadcast software is called OBS. So as you can see here, I've got my clean camera feed. So let's say that's that. So think of this as Photoshop. You've got multiple layers. So when we start a stream, we might start a stream with something like a countdown clock, which would be, so you build up your scenes, which are your different like scenes. So scene 1 would be like a intro video or a countdown clock. Once the countdown clock hits 0, we'll then go to the clean shot, your establishment shot, which looks like that. Let's say, for example, I now want to go to the person speaking. I will cut to that angle over there. And now I want to bring his lower third title, which is his name. So there his name appears. And then from there onwards, we would cut back to the clean. He will then go back to the wide. And then he might introduce the person on the right-hand side, which might be that person. And then I will have their lower third, their title name appear on the screen. And then we jump back to the clean again. And then from there onwards, it's just a case of jumping between all my different angles. And then from there, I'm also sending a stream via the software. So I can record via the software directly onto the computer. The recording that will come from this will be everything that I've added on top of the video footage, as well as push the stream to whatever online platform they need the stream to go to, pretty much. And yeah, this is in a nutshell how this all works. And then from there, I kind of just sit with my clients. The reason we did this was because we do a lot of big corporate live streams. And I really wanted to start tapping into the podcast side of things. I've obviously acquired a specific skill set around live content, which I'm trying to bring to the podcasting world now. And I'm looking at kind of like working with some of South Africa's bigger podcasters, startup podcasters, and applying what I've learned from the live stream side to the podcasting world in terms of adding the live element. I mean, as you know, content is all about user engagement, right? And yes, live stream content generates user engagement like it's no one's business.
Yeah, and it's very similar, if I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Because you've got multiple cams set up, generally in a podcast.
Yeah.
They generally have two close-ups and then a wide. So it's exactly the same as live, except sometimes it's pre-recorded and sometimes it's live.
Exactly.
But like you said, and you are correct on this, is live format is preferred by social media platforms at the moment. That's why TikTok Live and Instagram Live and YouTube Live is such a big thing, because people get engagement from it. People want to comment and then you can immediately engage with it and things like that.
Yeah.
So what are other services you offer other than festivals, live streaming, and this podcast thing? I know you do a lot of corporate stuff as well.
Yeah, so we do a lot of big events at the convention center. We've done things like the World Science Forum. We've done things like the Global Gathering, which was for the Daily Maverick. So these are like big corporate events where you've got people sitting on stage. So think like your TEDx style thing. Got an MC, a panel discussion with people sitting on a couch. So we've done a lot of those. We've done, as you know, a lot of music festivals. We've done a couple funerals. We've done a couple weddings. This is something we really try to stay away from because they tend to happen on wine farms where internet's always a problem. And now we're obviously getting into this very private one-on-one studio space too. We've had the pleasure of working with the United Nations for 5 days. I've live streamed 3 presidents, 2 prime ministers, a lot of music DJs and musicians, and just like a lot of government jobs. We've worked with AfriForum. We did a series with Toyota for their esports series. Woolies. It's been, since COVID happened, it really opened up the live stream space. It was the funniest thing. I remember I was running a marketing campaign just before COVID happened, 2 months before. And I would get onto calls with people and I'd be like, so, this live stream thing, it's going to become a thing. It's like online broadcast. They're like, but how does it work? Is it like a Skype call? Zoom didn't even explode back then, you know?
Yeah.
So it was quite funny. And then COVID happened. It was just like everyone just went live stream crazy.
Because they couldn't go out to actual events. I knew DJs did a lot of live streams themselves playing for a virtual crowd because they couldn't have physical crowds and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I knew you touched on it earlier, but just quickly tell me again, what are things to take into account for people that want to host live streams? So in other words, contact you and be like, cool, we need a live stream. What do they have to take into account before you can do your job?
Okay, so obviously the most important thing is always going to be internet, right? So if you're out in the Karoo somewhere where there's no 4G towers even, then it's pretty much you can use something like Satlink, but it's not as fast as people think and it's super expensive. So internet's always primary, right? We need to look at things like just the nature of the event. What is it that you're looking to cover? Where is it that you want to send the stream to? What is the stream about? Is it about a one-way broadcast? Is it a two-way conversation? Do you want to take questions from your audience? There are generally a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of the times it's quite straightforward. I mean, to explain live stream to people today is a lot easier than what it was a couple of years ago. Back then it was literally like drawing a picture. But I think the majority of people have got it figured out today. With a lot of the big events that we do today, there's generally a huge AV company that works on things. We actually get subcontracted most of the time via AV companies. So, and they cover most of it, like lighting, sound, microphones. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, we did a stream a couple of weeks ago from Convention Center where in the middle of Hall 2, which is this giant hall, where you've got all these little stalls and everything, right in the center, we had this full-on little television studio. And people would like walk past eating their little snacks and they'd be like, what the hell is going on right in the middle here? That's the beauty of live stream. It's like we've created television and everyone has the ability to be their own broadcaster today.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you can broadcast it out to any platform, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, every platform, we can do a live stream into a Zoom call, a Teams call, a Skype call, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, although we stay away from that. And then, of course, a lot of these streams also happen in a private space. So what would happen is you might like have an online portal where we would be sending a stream to, and then you've got a whole bunch of online participants where they would sit in these little virtual meeting rooms where you would have a stream and the person is presenting something, from our studio or from a studio, and you would have comfort monitors in front of this person, and he could actually see the people on the other side, and you could run things like polls, etc., etc. So sometimes these streams are happening in a private space, and they get sent to like a private server, so to speak.
Internal.
Yeah, internal. But the majority of the time, it's cheaper and it's easier just to run to something like YouTube. Remember, YouTube you could stream public, unlisted, or private. So it's very easy to control who can actually see that stream if you don't want everyone to see that. Facebook as well, you can stream to multiple pages at the same time. That's the loophole right there. That's why Facebook, a lot of people would say, Facebook's losing its audience, etc., etc. Nobody's hitting the numbers on Facebook, on live streams like they are on Facebook. That is unfortunately if you're streaming to YouTube, you have to stream to a channel. You're dependent on what's the subscriber base like on that channel. How many people are there? How well was the stream promoted? Where have these streams been embedded onto certain web pages? Where with Facebook, you can stream to, as long as you've been made admin to all these pages, you can stream to unlimited amount of Facebook pages. And as long as you've got your community managers online engaging on each page, you have the ability to send a stream into the stratosphere.
Crazy. And the reason you don't do Instagram and TikTok and those, it's social, you don't do 3 camera angles on those platforms.
Yeah,
it's more of a quick.
Yeah, as it is, if you stream to Instagram, you're now talking about an aspect ratio of 16:9 versus 9:16. It's like, I hate that. So, and I just find that, Instagram does a little bit of numbers, but it's not really meant for that, and people have tried it and it hasn't really worked. And then, of course, TikTok, that's just a personal preference for me. TikTok was designed for short form content, and that's really what it's there for, like Instagram too. So I'm sure people will try it out, but I think everyone's always going to jump back to what works. Like your Facebook and your YouTubes. Like YouTube is just the biggest pleasure to work with because they can ingest content like nobody's, it's nobody's business. Like you can send a 4K stream, no problem, 1080. Even if you lose an your connection for like a second, it doesn't just cut you off. It holds you there for a little bit. If you have any issues with copyright, it doesn't just kill your stream like Facebook does. Facebook is so tricky like that. Like you've got any kind of copyright algorithm that kicks in within 40 seconds, your stream's dead.
So explain more on that. Explain more to me what that is. So if you are live streaming and corporate event and they play a music video in the background with copyrighted music, they cut your stream.
Yeah. So and it's not. I mean, okay. So I'll talk about copyright and Facebook first. So with Facebook, remember, music is created. It is then sent to a record label. That record label licenses and lists that music with specific algorithms that might be assigned to certain platforms. So Facebook would be registered to specific record labels that have their own algorithm, and YouTube might have their own way of doing it too. So what happens is the music gets licensed with a label. They then list it with all these, let's call it copyright detective things. And then what would happen is on Facebook, you might be streaming. So there are different kinds of licensing types. There's some music tracks or some pieces of content that are very strict. Like the minute anything is detected that is picked up, Facebook is forced to shut that stream down. Or there might be something whereby it's like, it's not that bad. What they'll do is they'll just mute the stream for that period of time. Or they'll pick it up, but they won't have an issue with it.
Give you a warning.
Yeah, just give you a slight warning or something like that. YouTube on the other side has never cut us on the stream. I don't think that's ever happened. And again, these things can happen. It could just be a car driving past with a track playing, or a backing track of something that sounds like something else. Remember, you must understand that with music creation today, people are buying sample packs.
Yeah.
So just a bass line, a snare, a string could sound like another tune. And then you have it investigated, or you check the strike and you're like, wait a minute, this is not even the same track. But now you've invested hundreds of thousands of rands or a lot of money into doing these big broadcasts, and the stream goes down, you've lost your audience, all because an algorithm got it wrong. So what I always say to people is, if you are going to be doing a stream with music in it, do a test stream, just run all the audio tracks that you want on a testing page and see how that goes. If that gives you a problem, it will tell you which of the tracks are problematic. With Music Festival, that's impossible, because like you've got 5-6 DJs, each of them are playing 15 to 20 tracks a pop. It's like nobody wants to submit music ahead of time. So there you're literally just navigating in the blind. Like if a stream goes down, you got to have a backup stream ready. Hit another stream key and go back online, and that's it. YouTube, like I said, it's been a breeze. We've never had any issues with them. But again, you just don't do the numbers on YouTube yet. And it's all largely dependent on obviously how big your channel is, etc. But yeah, Facebook. Oh, LinkedIn is another one where people are starting to stream to. And they haven't really implemented any of the tricky little things yet, too, like the copyright algorithm or all these things. But I do find that it is missing a lot of functionality in the sense of, having these specific loopholes on the system whereby you can stream to multiple pages at the same time, or hit certain levels of engagement by having community managers on the page engage with your audience, etc., etc. So it's still very much in its infancy phase, but yeah, it's they're new to the game. They're last on the starting block. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But yeah.
So I want to start rounding off the podcast now. And first of all, I want to say thank you for all the jobs and opportunities we've worked together on.
It's been an absolute
We've
pleasure.
Done Spilt Milk, Eden.
Future Frequency.
Yeah, Future Frequency. We've done an interview with Headroom, I think that's his name.
We did an interview, what is his name again? Also a world famous artist. I can't remember right now, but
and then,
yes.
Yeah, we stayed a night at Robben Island for that thing.
That was dope, right?
That was interesting. That was cool. It was just cool experiences and stuff. And it's also like just knowing how live stream works from a camera side perspective.
Yeah.
Knowing how it works is completely different than content creation. So it's got that aspect which is quite interesting to me.
Yeah.
So this leads to my final question. What was your favorite festival that we worked on together and why?
I would say definitely, I actually can't say. That's a tough one. I think Future Frequency in that container yard, just because it looks so damn dope. It's like we had Table Mountain as this backdrop, giant towers of containers and huge lighting systems set up in these containers, and we had these drones flying around, and we got sunset, and it looked mad. Spilt Milk was very cool too. It's just like this giant inflatable dome with crazy lighting and sound. There, I think we were just fighting light. The thing is about AV companies, so they all know this now because they all live stream themselves now. But the minute you throw a smoke machine into a camera, you destroy any shot you've got. So, and I think they used to do that on purpose, to be honest. Eating experience was great too. It's just that, remember, with the music festival, there's a certain time of the night where it hits its sweet spot, where everyone's just so happy and loving each other, and the music's just so good. And then afterwards it goes to like a little bit of a dark phase later on in the night.
It's usually between like 11 and just after 12 is the sweet spot. Yeah. And then it's like people get tired. Yeah, people get tired. It gets a bit crazy. Then the mood kind of dips down. Everyone starts getting into this, like you said, the darker phase.
You can almost see the look on their faces. They start becoming like little gremlins. And the music starts getting darker and heavier. Oh, it's hilarious. But it's good fun. It's such an experience. And, I do miss doing the festivals because it's kind of like, I used to go to festivals when I was in my 20s and some of my 30s. But having an event where you're with your mates and having it documented for the whole world to see, and you personally being able to go back and look at that and go, God, I remember that moment. I remember the song being played. I remember how I felt. There was something that happened 20 years ago. It was a well-known DJ called Fatboy Slim. He performed on Brighton Beach. It was like the year 2000 or 2001. And what they thought was going to be like 10, 15,000. So he was going to give this live performance on Brighton Beach. And what they thought was going to be 20,000 people rock up became more than 1 million people. Jeez. The whole town, Brighton, was locked in. People couldn't get their cars in or out. And what happened was, and I was actually meant to go to that party one day. And I was like, I wish I was there. I wish I went to that. I was actually hung over that day. And it was recognized as the greatest party of all time. The party that everyone wished that I'd gone to. I mean, I remember that television crew there. Every news company around the world wanted to be there just because it was just such a fluke occurrence, And there was a DVD that was sold of the party. I mean, there's still people that, like, you can go onto YouTube today. Look at Fatboy Slim Brighton Beach. It's recognized as one of the greatest last-minute parties of all time. And I think that's what reminds me of what I do. These events, they now live forever in time because it's been documented, it was broadcasted, and these people that were there, they can always go back and look at that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a perfect ending to the podcast as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for joining the Wulfpack podcast.
Absolutely.
And I'll link all your company stuff, Streamlab stuff in the description below. Cool. Maybe I'll link a festival or two. I'll link that Future Frequency one in there as well.
Cool. I see a lot of Dieter's angles.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to figure out which camera angles are mine.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you very much.
Cool.
And good luck on the other live streams.
Thank you.